My name is David. I was born in Yelwata, a quiet Christian village in Benue State. We were farmers, singers, dreamers. Every morning the sun painted our roofs gold, and every evening the sound of our church choir floated through the wind like a promise of peace. That evening, June 13th, 2025, I sat outside our small house, shelling corn with my wife Miriam. Our daughter ran barefoot in the dust, chasing her laughter. The air smelled of roasted yam and firewood. Nothing warned us that death had already begun its journey toward us. Then we heard it, faint at first, like thunder. But it wasn't thunder. It was the sound of men shouting, shooting, burning. Yelwata was under attack. I grabbed my child and ran into the dark. Miriam stayed behind for a moment. She said she would get the Bible from our table. That was the last time I saw her alive. The sky turned red, not from sunset, but from fire. Houses burned like dry grass. The screams of children mixed with gunshots. The night became a song of sorrow. They came in trucks carrying guns and fuel. They shot at anyone they saw. Some of my neighbors tried to hide in the church. The attackers burned it too. The cross fell from the roof and melted in the flames. I hid behind a tree, holding my daughter close. Her small body shook in my arms as we watched everything we loved turn to ashes. I whispered, "Jesus, please, not tonight." But the bullets didn't stop. I saw old men who once lifted their hands to pray lying on the ground with those same hands now covered in dust and blood. When morning came, silence fell, but it was the kind of silence that screams. The smoke still rose from our homes. The air smelled of iron and pain. More than 100 of us were gone. Fathers, mothers, children. Our church was gone. My wife was gone. That night, I learned that faith is not proven in peace. It's proven in fire. They called it the Yelwata Massacre. But I call it the night God tested the roots of our faith. Many of us fled, some wounded, some lost. But even in the darkness, I could still hear voices whispering prayers, singing hymns with broken voices. They were not songs of defeat, they were songs of hope. And as we walked into the unknown, carrying only the clothes on our backs, I whispered to my little girl, "The fire may take everything, but it cannot take our faith."
We walked for hours without speaking. The forest was thick, and every sound felt like danger. My daughter clung to me, her tiny hand trembling. The moon watched from above, cold and distant, as if even heaven was mourning. By dawn, we reached the edge of another village. Strangers took us in, people who had nothing yet offered water, mats, and tears. There were others like me there, faces I knew from Yelwata, now hollow and dust-streaked. We were a village of survivors without a village. That morning I sat beneath a mango tree and tried to pray, but my words wouldn't come. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the fire again. I saw Miriam's smile swallowed by smoke. I heard the cries of children that never faded. And I asked God, "Why did you let this happen?" The silence that followed was unbearable. Days passed. The government said they would investigate, but nothing changed. The media called it an attack by unknown gunmen. But we knew who came. We knew who fired the shots, who burned our church, who scattered us like ashes in the wind. At night, the survivors gathered in a broken school building that now served as a camp. We lit candles in empty cans and sang softly, songs we used to sing in our church before it was reduced to rubble. The voices were weak, cracked by grief, yet there was something holy about that sound. I remember the words of one old woman, her body frail but her faith unshaken. She said, "They can burn our houses, but they cannot burn the kingdom of God within us." Her words pierced me, because in that moment I realized faith isn't about never being afraid. It's about standing when everything inside you wants to fall. My daughter once asked me, "Papa, will they come again?" I didn't know what to tell her. The truth was, we all feared they would. But I looked into her eyes, those small pools of innocence, and said, "No, my child, because even if they come, Jesus will still be here." That night I wept, not just for Miriam, but for all of us, for the farmers who would never return to their fields, for the songs that would never be sung again, for the children who would grow up with memories of fire instead of lullabies. And yet, as I wept, I felt something I hadn't felt in days, a whisper in my spirit. It wasn't loud, but it was steady, like a heartbeat. "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." I opened my Bible, what was left of it, a torn page that Miriam had placed inside my bag before we fled. Psalm 27 stared back at me. "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" For the first time since the massacre, I smiled, a weak, trembling smile, but real, because I understood our faith is not destroyed in fire, it is refined by it. The next morning I gathered the survivors. We prayed, not for vengeance, but for strength. We prayed for the ones who killed us too. It was not easy. My voice broke when I said their names in prayer, but I remembered what Christ said on the cross. "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And in that broken camp, surrounded by people who had lost everything, I felt heaven draw near. The valley was still dark, the pain was still real, but now I could see a faint light ahead, small but unextinguished. We were still alive, and as long as we lived, the faith of Yelwata would live too. It has been months since that night. The ashes have cooled, but the memories still burn. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I can still hear the crackling of flames and the cries that pierced the dark. Yet I have learned something the fire could not destroy: hope. We built a small wooden cross on the ground where our church once stood. Every Sunday we gather there, barefoot, broken, but unbowed. The ground is sacred, not because it is free of pain, but because it was soaked with the blood of those who believed. When I speak to the people now, I don't speak as the man who lost his wife. I speak as the man who found his faith in the fire. I tell them, we are not victims, we are witnesses. Because when the world turns its back on you, when evil roars like a lion and the night swallows your joy, that is when faith becomes more than a word. Faith becomes breath. It becomes your only reason to wake up. Many ask me, "David, where was God that night?" And I tell them, He was right there, in the cries, in the courage, in the last prayers whispered through the smoke. God does not always stop the storm. Sometimes He stands with you in the middle of it, so the storm learns your name. One day my daughter asked me, "Papa, will we ever go home again?" And I told her, we already did, because home is not the walls we build, it's the faith we carry. I began preaching again, not from a pulpit, but under the open sky. The people gathered with eyes full of pain and questions. I opened my Bible and my voice trembled as I read, "When you walk through the fire, ye shall not be burned, the flames shall not consume you." Then I looked at them and said, we walked through the fire. It took our homes, our fields, our loved ones, but it did not take our faith. The fire did not consume us, it purified us. The people wept, not tears of sorrow, but of surrender. And there among the ruins, something new was born, a church without walls, a people unbroken. I told them they wanted to silence our songs, but now the earth itself will sing of what God has done. They wanted to bury our faith, but they only planted it. And faith, when buried, always grows back stronger. The world may forget Yelwata, news may move on, but heaven remembers every name, every tear, every voice that called out to God that night. And I remember Miriam's last words before she ran into the house. She said, "I'll get the Bible." Now I understand. She didn't just go to save a book. She went to save our legacy. because the word cannot burn. So when I preach today, I hold that same Bible, the one with smoke-stained pages and the scent of ashes. It reminds me of the truth I now live by. Faith is not proven in the absence of fire, but in the courage to walk through it, holding God's hand. I don't know what tomorrow holds, maybe peace, maybe more storms. But I know this, the God who walked with us through the fire will walk with us still. And when the story of Yelwata is told, it will not be remembered as the story of death, but the story of a people who refused to let the flames take their faith. For though we were crushed, we are not destroyed. Though we were struck down, we rise again. The fire came, but faith stood taller. And that is how Yelwata still lives.